begin in Division 1. 4 South Shore teams in the top division in the MIAA. Just one, however, able to earn a home playoff game in round 1. That is the number 5 seed Severian Brothers High School. The Hawks will host the 12 seed Wachusett from the Hawk Bowl Friday night at 7 p.m. The Hawks laden with talent this year. Some familiar last names, of course. Hasselbeck, Camella, the return of Henry Hasselbeck, or I should say the entrance of Henry Hasselbeck through transfer, has really aided this Severian Brothers High School offense. They've taken a big leap forward this year. So has the development of running back and UConn baseball commit Michael Oates, as well as Jonathan Montero outside at wide receiver. This is a high-flying Hawks offense. They stumbled out of the gates early with a loss to King Philip. They've rebounded since. In the final week of the regular season, they give Catholic Memorial, the number 4 seed down in Division 2, their biggest test yet. Nearly ended the Knights' now 23-game winning streak, longest in the state there. Severian had a fourth quarter lead, but ultimately came up a little bit short. A big cause of that, a targeting penalty on senior captain Anthony Busa, playing at quarterback, a big hit over the middle, and that will keep Busa out of this game in round 1 on Friday night. The Hawks will have to try to get by without the leader on the back end of their defense. Busa didn't agree with the call. Many people didn't agree with the call, but not only was it a targeting penalty that gave CM a really good chance of winning that game, it was also a targeting penalty that resulted in a 1-game suspension. So no Busa for the Hawks. They'll try to get by without him. For Wachusett, this is a high-flying offense. They're led by UConn commit quarterback Tucker McDonald. 19 touchdown tosses on the season, 5 more on the ground, over 1,500 yards of total offense for McDonald. He is the real deal. He's got Chris Snepkowski at running back, Matt Reiki at wide receiver. This is a very dynamic offense. They suffered a week 1 loss to Franklin, got their season going, the number 1 team in Division 1, of course. And since then, they have scored fewer than 40 points just once on the season. In total, they average just under 42 points per game, about 6 touchdowns every game for Wachusett. The Hawks defense is going to have to show up. Will that Anthony Busa absence loom large in this one? Only time will tell. It's the final year at the helm for head coach Peter Colombo. It ends a 54-year stretch of Colombo's on the sidelines for the Brockton Boxers. His team putting up a 7-1 regular season, good enough to earn the number 9 seed in the D1 tournament. They'll travel for round 1, a road matchup with Methuen, the 8 seed. Brockton's offense has looked good this season, especially good since they've gotten into SEC play. Mauricio Powell at tailback has starred the last 2 weeks alone, 446 yards on the ground, 4 touchdowns. He's been absolutely unstoppable. So has K.O. Asanubi, the transfer from Catholic Memorial, scored a couple of touchdowns for the Knights in their D2 Super Bowl victory over King Philip, came back for his senior season at Brockton, and he has been a big piece of his resurgent rushing attack for the Boxers. The big question for Brockton, though, Cam Montero. He's been sidelined the last 2 weeks with injury. Will he return for this round 1 matchup against Methuen? If he does, you have to like the Boxers' chances even on the road. If he does not, some question marks. It will be a tough road for the Boxers against Methuen. For Methuen, it's all about the Easton brothers. Drew, the junior, at quarterback. Shane, the sophomore, at running back. They have been electricity. Drew, over the last 2 weeks, has turned it on. 28 of 30 passing for 626 yards, 6 touchdowns, and just a single interception. He's been careful with the ball, just 2 incompletions. Of course, last week had nearly 400 yards in the win over North Andover. His younger brother, Shane, has also been fantastic. 262 yards and 7 touchdowns over that 2-game stretch as well. Methuen has only suffered 2 losses on the season. They come in at 6-2, and they've been to the number 2 and 3 teams in Division 1. They lost a tight one to Andover, got blown out, however, by Central Catholic. It will be a tough matchup, but this is a battle-tested Methuen team that Brockton will have to go up against. As we look at some of the double-digit seeded matchups for our South Shore representatives in Division 1, it starts with number 14, Braintree, and what a fantastic story they've been. 4-4 regular season, but the record almost insignificant behind the story of their senior captain quarterback, James Tellier. Battled back from cancer to be with the team this year. He's had a wonderful season for himself. This Braintree Womps offense starting to really take shape as the season has worn on. That's also in part due to Mario Franciosa Johnson's excellent play. He is a strong dual threat running back. He can do it all for the Wombs, pass catch, get the yards on the ground. He's been excellent for them. They've got a very, very tough matchup, though, against the runners-up from last year's tournament, Central Catholic, the number 3 seed, and this is a fearsome defense. They are led, of course, by the number 7 ranked prospect in Massachusetts, Notre Dame commit Preston Zinter. Plays in the center of that defense at linebacker. He's a thumper. Also plays both ways, goes as a tight end on the offense, as a safety blanket for sophomore quarterback Blake Hebert. We can debate whether or not Central Catholic is truly a contender this year. They've already lost to North Andover. Remember, in week 1, they got blown out 38-0 at the hands of Springfield Central, but would not be all too surprising to see a rematch of last year's D1 final take shape again this year if Central and Central Catholic were once again able to get there. Braintree try to pull off the big upset. Of course, they will be looking out to see if Mike Ryan, wide receiver for Central Catholic, leading pass catcher, is active. He tweaked his ankle against Barnstable in the final week of the season for Central Catholic. So if he is out, the Raiders may be looking elsewhere on offense, and Braintree might have a chance in this one. Weymouth Wildcats enter as the number 16 seed. Tough draw. They get the number 1 overall seed after a 4-4 regular season for the Wildcats. They will take on the Franklin Panthers. Now, Franklin, if you had to pick one of the top 4 seeds, may be the team that you would want to go up against. When you look at the other top seeds, Andover, Central Catholic, Springfield Central, the Panthers seem like the overseeded team of the bunch. Coming out of a tough Hockomock league, yes, but they are just 5-2 on the season. Remember, they lost to D4 leader Duxbury in the early goings of the year. Still, a very powerful offensive attack for the Panthers. They are led by Jace Lyons and Luke Davis, quarterback and wide receiver, respectively, one of the most prolific duos in the state. Lyons led the Hockomock League with 19 passing touchdowns. Luke Davis on the receiving end for 11 of those. Those are your D1 matchups. Can Weymouth find a way to slow this game down, give themselves a shot? We shall see. But 4 Division I matchups, 3 of them on the road. Jumping down to Division II, the South Shore Metro South has 4 representatives in the field, including 2 that will host on Friday night. We start with the 7 seed Marshfield. They'll get the number 10 seed Woburn Tanners. 6-2 Rams, 5-3 Tanners entering this game. Marshfield surprising some people this season. The 6-2 start, including the last 6 games in which they have won, after a season where they had heavy attrition from last year's team, including loss of quarterback Owen Masterson and wide receiver Pat Yasinko. They've just come right back, gotten the offense going. They used a Week 3 victory over BC High, a come-from-behind fourth-quarter win in the final moments of that game to spur this winning streak. Anthony Melander has been strong at quarterback, as has Joe Corbo, anchoring the defense for Marshfield as one of the best ball-hawking corners around. Plus, the Rams getting healthy at the right time. Senior running back Jack Marini back in the fold last couple of weeks after being sidelined due to injury he sustained in his Week 2 loss against Methuen. For the Woburn Tanners, well, the 5-3 record is uninspiring. You look at their losses, the 3 losses have come to opponents with a combined record of 23-1 on the season. That's 2 undefeateds and another team that was 7-1. And each one of those losses by just a single point. They've got an equally strong defense. Mark Catone, 3 interceptions last week versus Belmont, as his team turned over the Marauders 5 times in the game. The offense, though, is the story for Woburn. This junior running back Brian Ferreira, after a 1,000-yard campaign as just a sophomore starting last year, came back this year. He's got over 1,300 yards and 14 touchdowns for the Tanners. He is a force on the ground. Number 8, Mansfield Hornets will be hosting the number 9 Wellesley Raiders this week. Also a Friday night, 7 p.m. kickoff there. The Hornets have gotten some stability at the quarterback position thanks to Connor Zukowski. Running back position has also been solid with Rocco Scarpolini and Karna Curtis anchoring that grouping. Their big play in a bottle moving into the Davenport division of the Hockomock League this year. They have been solid. Suffered a Week 2 loss to North Attleboro, but since then have been dominant. 6 straight wins for the Hornets, in which they have given up a total of 20 points. 4 shutouts included in that stretch. Wellesley, an equally great defense, however. The Raiders have won 5 straight, allowing no more than 7 points in any of those games, just a single score. Their defense, led by Georgetown commit Jake Parker, self-professed gym rat who has put on over 40 pounds in the last 2 seasons. Just working out, loves to get in there and pump that iron. He is a big fella at that linebacker position. On the offensive side of the ball, it's the Ferrara brothers for the Raiders. Vincent at quarterback, Xavier at wide receiver. They give a little potency to this Wellesley offense. The Hingham Harbormen had their designs on a home playoff game after a 4-0 start to the regular season, but a 2-2 finish down the stretch has Hingham and Mark Nutley heading on the road in week 1. Harbormen have hung their hat on their defense all season long, giving up under 2 touchdowns per game at 13.3 points on average. Ronan O'Keardavan and Johnny Heffernan will have their hands full this week as they take on the 5-seed Chelmsford. 7-time state champions, Chelmsford comes in with an offense that is averaging over 42 points per game after suffering a bit of a surprising week 1 loss to the 3-seed down in Division 5 Maynard. Chelmsford has gotten their act together and rattled off 7 straight wins. The 64 points they put up against Dracut was the most they've scored in school history. They're led by juniors Kyle Wilder at quarterback and Kai Everett at running back, as well as senior Manny Marshall at wide receiver. They can get it done in every facet of the offensive game, but their defense has been just as good as well, averaging just 10 points against per game. Our final D2 matchup is a tough one, no question about it. Number 13, Bridgewater Raynham will have to go into the Valley of the Beast. Number 4, Catholic Memorial, underseeded at number 4. No question about it. The state's longest winning streak at 24 games for the Knights, who are the reigning Division II state champions and who many believe are the number 1 team in the state. J.C. Petrangelo leads an offense that is filled with D1 talent, a roster filled with D1 talent. Jaden Skeet, Detrell Jones, BC commits for now, as well as on the defensive side of the ball, Boubacar Traore, the Notre Dame commit. They have talent at every level. It will be tough sledding, no question about it, for Bridgewater Raynham, who has really leaned on tailback Dawson DuBose. He's been wonderful on the season for Bridgewater Raynham, well over 1,000 yards, multiple 200-plus yard games. He is the real deal, but it is going to be a tough matchup indeed. With that, let's take a deeper dive into Division II. We'll bring in Johnny Rourke, co-host of the Sports Exchange, airing from 5 to 7 on Sunday evenings on 95.9 WATD. Johnny, how are you?
Great. Feeling good.
Playoffs are upon us, and with that, let's do a little deep dive into Division II. 4 South Shore teams in the field in Division II, including Marshfield against Woburn, Mansfield against Wellesley, Hingham on the road at Chelmsford, and Bridgewater Raynham at Catholic Memorial. When you look at the Division II field, first and foremost, which game is the one that jumps out to you? Which are you most interested in?
Yeah, I mean, I think first off, what jumped out at me is no South Shore team in D2 has an easy first-round game. They're going to be battling no matter what seed you are. These are going to be battles. Honestly, the one that really jumps out to me is Mansfield-Wellesley, the 8-9. I think that one could really be a shootout. Once the Mansfield offense gets going, Connor Zukowski under center can really sling it. They got a really good offense down there in Mansfield, and I think that's a really good 8-9 matchup.
That's a team in Mansfield that they lost week 2 to North Attleboro. Since then, they've rattled off 6 in a row, and they've given up just 20 points over those 6 weeks. 4 shutouts. Their defense has been absolutely unbelievable. But this year, they've been playing in the Davenport division. School size shrunk, so they move out of the tougher Kelly Rex, switch with North Attleboro into the Davenport division. So I have to ask, Johnny, has this team been tested enough going into the playoffs to lead you to believe that they can make a run here in D2?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, right? I think that's huge because when they were in the other division, they were tested week in and week out. Like that division of the Hawk has fantastic players and fantastic teams week in and week out. So, I honestly don't think they have been. I think they take care of Wellesley in the first round game, but then they got their hands full in the second round game, with the 1 seed. So that'll be obviously the true test. And Wellesley is no slouch either. You can't overlook them. But, I think if you're Mansfield, you trust that you're a great program no matter who you play throughout the year, and you'll be ready for playoff football.
It's one of those things for, the quality of opponent, whether or not they need to be tested, it does hurt where they end up in the rankings. So Mansfield might be much more talented than a number 8 seed, but even if they win, as you said, they're going to have the number 1 seed in week 2 in a very, very tough game against Milford. So they may find their Hockomock Kelly Rex opponents one way or another.
You can't escape them.
Let's look at that Marshfield game as well. Marshfield getting healthy at the right time, a tough Woburn team who has lost a few games this year, but have been in all of their games. Everything's been very tight. Marshfield, same kind of thing. Early season loss. They've had a couple of gutted out, gutsy wins since then. Where do you feel like this Marshfield team is at? Do you like their chances?
Yeah, well, I mean, at the end of the day, they're playing their best football right now, and I think that's key when you're going into the playoffs. Them being the 7 seed, they're home, which is great. I think that's a huge factor, especially with the statewide, playoff system. Woburn's got to travel a little bit down to Marshfield, but Woburn is no slouch of a team either at the 10 seed. They've been in a couple tight games. It's huge for Marshfield that they've gotten Jack Marini back at running back. That is absolutely huge for their offense. And they're a team, like I said, they're playing their best football at the end of the year. They lost their first 2. They didn't hit the panic button. They lost to St. John's Prep and a close one to Methuen. And then they fell behind to BC High, which is never good right now with BC High because they're just not good. But they were able to overcome that and have rattled off 6 straight. So, again, I think they're playing their best football, and I think they're rolling into playoffs, but they're going to have their hands full with Woburn.
Sure are. When you look at those 2 lower-seeded matchups, Braintree and Central Catholic, Weymouth and Hingham and Chelmsford, Bridgewater Raynham at Catholic Memorial. Hingham may be a sniff in that game. Far less likely for Bridgewater Raynham.
Yeah, for sure. I'll talk about Hingham first. I mean, I do think they have a sniff. I think Chelmsford is really, really good. Any team that gets a top 5 seed, especially in Division II, is a good team, like a really, really good team. And, flipped, unlike Marshfield, Hingham's got to go on the road, right? They got to go up to Chelmsford, which is no easy task. I do think they're going to have to start throwing the ball at some point. Maybe not early, but they're going to find themselves at some point in that game having to air it out. So look for Cameron Dobson to have a big game on the outside. I think he has to for them to have a real chance in this game. But again, don't count them out by any stretch of the imagination. They can go on a run. They've got a really good defense, but it's going to be tough to beat Chelmsford in their house.
On the other side of things, are we counting out Bridgewater Raynham from that?
Yeah, no, we are. I mean, BR is a scrappy team. I really like what their coach is building over there, and it's a lot of good energy coming from Bridgewater Raynham this year. But I mean, Catholic Memorial might be the best 4 seed ever in any sport, any division. Like the 4 seed in Division II should be a really good team. Catholic Memorial is the best team in the state. I don't think it's frankly close. So they're, I think, gonna beat BR by about 50. So, it's a tough draw. As a 13, you know you're gonna have a tough draw, but CM being the 4 is a little ridiculous.
Yeah, CM being in D2, we've talked
CM
about.
being in D2 is ridiculous, but being the 4 is especially ridiculous.
Well, thank you, Johnny. I appreciate you joining us for a little in-depth look at Division II. You can find Johnny on the Sports Exchange Sunday nights, 5 to 7 p.m. on 95.9 WATD. We look now at Division III, tied for the deepest division in terms of South Shore and Metro South representatives in the field. 5 teams at D3, headlined by the number 1 seed, Milton. 7-0, the Wildcats are heading into the playoffs, led by D1 baseball commit, playing quarterback Owen McHugh. He has proven a more than worthy heir to Chase Vaughn. McHugh has been scoring in bunches this year, spreading the ball around to favorite targets, including Mike Fulton and Luke Salmon, over 20 touchdown tosses on the year for McHugh. This Wildcats offense is big time, and the Wildcats themselves, while not prohibitive favorites, are very close to. You would expect that in a couple of weeks, this team may well be punching their ticket to Gillette. They will face the number 16 seed in round one, Minnechaug, who comes to the South Shore for the second straight year. 4-4 on the season. They have lost back-to-back games heading into the playoffs. And despite having some key returners on offense, including quarterback Jack Lucarelli and running back Isaiah Kozub, kind of a weak offense this year for Minnechaug, averaging just a paltry 15.8 points per game. They're going to need to score much more than that to keep up with the Wildcats. Our second undefeated team in the field is the number 3 seed Plymouth South. 8-0 on the season. You know Cassius Johnson, one of the biggest stars here on the South Shore. He has been pure electricity, over 1,000 yards rushing once again for Plymouth South. Well over now 2,500 on his career, approaching 3,000 yards, if not already there for the Panthers. Along with Johnson in the offense, it has been the defense that has really got it done. The Davis twins, Justin LaChance, Gio Roberio on the back end. Add in the fact that back on offense, you've got Cole Brunstrom, who can now mix it up and throw a good ball, get the offense moving downfield. This is a very dynamic Plymouth South team. They will face in round one the 14 seed and a team that they have already played against. That's Revere, the Patriots, coming into America's hometown to take on Plymouth South once again. The last meeting between these two teams, 35-20 final. Plymouth South got up 28-0 in the first half, but it was a 20-7 advantage for Revere in the second half of that ball game. Plymouth South gave up 3 touchdowns to quarterback Carlos Rizzo in that game. They did, however, hold in check star Revere running back, the Chelsea transfer, Mikan Funes-Gonzalez. And Revere, a much better team since then. 3 shutouts for the Patriots in their last 5 games. With that, let's bring in head coach of the Panthers, Darren Fruzetti, to talk about this game. Coach, congratulations on the undefeated season. 8-0 thus far. Incredibly impressive. I'm interested, was this something that from the outset you guys believed internally was possible?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we ever used the word undefeated. What we did talk about is obviously our first goal is to win a league championship. So we knew that would take, obviously in our league with as many good teams as there are, that takes, you got to win quite a few games in order to make that feat happen. So I think as this thing started going, we never really talked about being undefeated. We just wanted to make sure that we were playing our best football at the end of October. So I think we were able to do that. And, the kids, credit to the kids, they stayed focused on that goal.
Well, Coach, we were on hand for your Week 8 game against Scituate in which you clinched that league title. And started the second half, Cassius Johnson really took over that game. It was a different animal coming out from the halftime. And still, this late in the season, with the reputation that Cassius Johnson has built for himself over these last 3 years, he still has that ability to be a game breaker against a variety of different teams. How is that, and how do you make sure that he continues to be that in the playoffs?
Yeah, I think he's just more fresh right now. His touches have been decreased significantly from where they were a year ago, game-to-game wise. So I think just trying to keep his touch range in the 20 to 25 range. I think he's a much different player. When he's not touching the ball 40 times. I think we've always asked a lot of him, but I think sometimes having a kid do too much, they can kind of wear out in the second half. He's big, strong, and physical, but that type of body does tend to get gassed pretty quick. So I think when he only had, I want to say, maybe 10 or 11 touches in the first half, we knew that in the second half, in order to, we wanted to come out and establish the line of scrimmage, and that starts with him. So we just had some straight ahead downhill runs, not necessarily our counter scheme, but more of a power ISO scheme coming out in the second half, and just wanted to make sure we ran downhill.
Well, of course, Coach, Cassius does grab a lot of the headlines, but what's really made you guys dynamic offensively this year is the development of Cole Brunstrom as a passer. Started for the first time last year. He's in his second year starting at quarterback, and he's added a lot to your aerial attack. I'm interested if you can tell me a little bit about the growth that you've seen from Cole Brunstrom this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Cole gives us is just experience now. I mean, he's at the point now where he's got 18 games as a varsity quarterback under his belt. So I think that, you know, every game that he plays, he gets a little bit better and sees more and is understanding of certain situations. And, you know, he's got the offense down pat now. You know, there's a lot of terminology and a lot of moving parts with motion and screens. And, you know, I think it really takes, you know, over a dozen games to really feel comfortable to be able to do everything that he's doing this year. He's been incredible. You know, he's like having a coach on the field. He cares. He shows up every day and works hard. So just really proud of his performance.
I've long said, Coach, that your secondary is one of the best in the area, if not the state, between the Davis twins, Declan and Liam, Justin LaChance, Gio Ribeiro. You're supremely talented on the back end. When you look ahead at this division, of course, you don't want to get past that first-round matchup just yet, but this playoff field is laden with teams who love to air it out. You look at Milton, Hanover. How important is that secondary of yours, that unit of the defense, going to be in these playoffs?
Yeah, I think, you know, having Declan Davis as the free safety, he's really the quarterback of the defense. Anytime you can have a kid with a 4.7 GPA, you know, making calls for you and getting guys lined up on every single play. You know, we ask a lot of him, and I think, you know, just having that experience back there, you know, Justin, like you said, Justin, Liam, Declan are all returning starters. You know, and with, you know, they have to have Gio's back as a newcomer, and they're able to, you know, not that he needs help getting lined up. He practices really hard. He knows his stuff, but just to have that experience back there in all situations, just it might be like a 3rd and 8 and it's defend the sticks. You know, if we're in a quarters coverage, it's don't necessarily bail. Let's get a stop and get them to punt. Just that knowledge back there. Like I said, it all runs through Declan. He's been the man this year.
You're preparing now for a first-round matchup against a team that you've already seen this season in Revere, a team that you've already beaten, and I'm wondering if that makes preparation easier for you or harder. Is it something where you have to make sure that you don't just lean on results that you've gotten that are in the past, or does the team have the appropriate amount of focus heading into this game?
Yeah, I think, you know, when you're able to put film on Huddle where they, you know, they play Everett really hard. I think we're both different teams than we were in week 2. I think Revere has gotten a lot better. I think our offensive line play is a lot better. And, you know, to be honest with you, I left Revere with and I can speak for the whole team, I think we all left Revere with a sour taste in our mouth on week 2 because we just didn't play really well in the second half. You know, it was 28-0 at halftime, but, you know, we were only able to score one touchdown in the second half. So I think if you focus on things that we need to get better at, and, you know, Situate did some things to us that we need to work on this week, and I think you can never be satisfied. You can always get better, and I think if we just take that mindset, we'll be okay.
Well, Coach, we appreciate you joining us today. Thank you so much, and good luck on Friday night.
All right, thank you. Have a good day.
The Patriot League Fisher Division runners-up also in this D3 field. The Hanover Hawks check in as the 4 seed. They will host Westwood on Friday night. Hanover had some question marks this season with the transfer of Michael Landolfi, their quarterback, off to the ISL, as well as 60% of their offensive line heading out the door. They were originally a Super Bowl favorite pick, but question marks at the beginning of the season with those transfers. All those questions have all been answered as Ben Scalzi, the junior, has stepped into the quarterback role, filled in exquisitely, and he leads a high-powered Hanover offense that also features Nick Friel at running back and Joe Curran at wide receiver, 2 of the stars that play both ways for this Hanover team. Friel at linebacker and Joe Curran on the back end of a really talented defense. This season has not been without adversity, however, for Hanover. They lost David Quinlan, one of their key pieces at defensive end and wide receiver, for the season in their game against Plymouth South. For Westwood, a team that is susceptible to the big play, you should see Hanover with some big shots over the top, chances to make some plays on Friday night. Westwood on the outside of their offense stars with Jack McDaniels, if the name sounds familiar, of course, he's Las Vegas Raiders head coach and longtime Patriots OC Josh McDaniels' son. He's a senior wideout, as is Tommy Kane, and they've got a lot of talent on the outside and a quarterback and senior captain Brendan Donegan that can get the ball around to them. So for as fun as it may be for the Hanover offense on Friday night, they will have their hands full defensively trying to stop Westwood's attack. The Whitman-Hanson Panthers are back in the D3 playoffs under second-year head coach Zach Botello after a 2-9 season last year, including a winless regular season. Year 2 of the Botello era has been much better, and that is all thanks to the defense, which the Panthers will lean on. It is a fearsome unit. Offensively, Evan Casey stars at running back as well. He personifies grit for this Panthers team. They will have their hands full, though, in round 1. A very tough draw. They will head on the road to the 6-1 8 seed, the Marblehead Magicians. Marblehead, the defending Division III state champions, had their state-long 23-game win streak snapped in Week 5 as they took on undefeated Peabody. It was their lone loss of the season. Marblehead is the Northeast Conference Dunn Division champions, and they have some talent on the offensive side of the ball. Junior quarterback Miles O'Neill, 69% completion, 109 for 158 on the season. He's got nearly 1,500 yards, 17 TDs to just 5 interceptions. He will spread it around. Senior captain, wide receiver Connor Cronin, and junior Ryan Kamos, his 2 favorite targets. Talk about this game and his trip back to the playoffs in year 2. Let's get head coach of Whitman-Hanson, Zach Botello, on the horn. Coach, to go from a winless regular season last year to back in the playoffs here in year 2, incredible accomplishment. What was the biggest factor for you guys in the turnaround?
Really, just it starts with our leadership in our senior class. They, at the end of last year, made a decision as a group that wasn't going to happen again. They wanted to be successful and compete in every game that we played. And their work in the off-season echoed their words. They were in the weight room. They were 7-on-7. They were playing other sports. They were getting it done in the classroom. And they showed up ready from day one. Throughout the season, they've picked each other up. They've gotten on each other when they didn't meet the expectation, but continuously just leading the way and raising the bar every week. It's just a testament to the hard work of our kids.
Yeah. You've hung your hat on the defensive side of the ball all year long. What about that unit is so effective?
Really, it's our kids want to play tough and physical, and defense lends itself so naturally to that. We're lucky to have a year of film now on what our guys did well, and meeting in the offseason with our defensive coordinator, Randy Grimmett, and some of our other assistant coaches, we found a system that was going to let our guys play downhill, play physical, and they've just rallied around that idea that we're going to bend, but we're not going to break. And they just love hitting people. I mean, this week we've kind of peeled it back in practice a little bit with the physicality just because we're a little banged up, and they're like disappointed that we're not doing live tackling, live blocking, like they want to hit each other. I'm like, I love that, but we got to be a little smart about it, guys.
Absolutely. Well, tell me, Coach, this year has been about reestablishing an identity. You talk about that downhill nature, attacking, big, physical. For so many years, that has been synonymous with Whitman-Hanson football. How satisfying has it been this year to reclaim that identity?
It's such a special thing, really. Getting to know the history and meeting people in the community and guys that have coached here and played here and what it means to the Whitman-Hanson communities. To be able to bring that back with the group of kids we have now, who many have dads and uncles and cousins who played on those teams. It's really special, and the town loves it. Talking to people just at our games, they like to see it physical, running the football, smacking people at the line of scrimmage, and I just said from a competitive place, it helps us kind of stand out a little bit in a league that's mostly spread and a lot of like basketball on grass. The kids buy into it, the community bought into it, and I think it'll be an awesome thing to keep growing here.
Well, that identity certainly bleeds into the offense as well, and the biggest driver of that is Evan Casey, of course, big physical. Tell me what he has given you this year at the running back position.
He's just a true, tough, downhill, physical runner. He finishes runs in a way that make him a threat to, get a first down every time he catches the ball. There's one cut and go. He's big. He's strong. He's like 6'1", 200 pounds. He's strong. He's quick, and really just his desire to be the hammer and not the nail, like we like to say, has allowed the interior run game to be successful, and then to play off of him, we've been able to get other guys on outside stuff and jet sweeps and counter action because teams really have to worry about getting bodies on him.
Coach, final game of the season, the result doesn't go your way, but you go up against a Duxbury team and you hang with them right to the very end. I know it's tough, especially late in the season, to talk about moral victories, but is there anything that you can take from that game, even though it was a loss, against a program that undefeated and right now ranked number 1 in the power rankings?
Oh, 100%. The knowledge that we have, the group that can compete with the best of the best, is something that they have taken as a positive and built on. Like you said, there's no moral victories. Didn't help us out in terms of seeding or getting a home game or all that stuff. But being able to win some tough ones this year, being able to win the ones we were supposed to win this year, and then going toe-to-toe with the Duxbury, going toe-to-toe with the Hingham, going toe-to-toe with the Marshfield, and taking our lumps and seeing where the mistakes were in the regular season, I think is only going to benefit us as we go through the gauntlet that is D3.
Looking ahead to your first-round matchup here, tough draw with Marblehead, a team that entered the season with the state's longest winning streak, of course, the defending Division III Super Bowl champions. What do you know about your opponent, and how are you going to have to attack this team?
I didn't know a ton about them coming in. Looking at the power ratings throughout the season, I did do a little research. Our staff did a little bit just because they were in that area where we might see them. But just watching them on film and what you read about them, it's very apparent that they are a well-coached team. They are truly a program that they graduated a bunch of guys from their Super Bowl team and replaced them with guys that are very, very athletic. They're big, they're strong. Clear, they know who their playmakers are, and they work hard to put them in positions to make plays. And we're definitely going to have our hands full Friday.
Coach, we really appreciate your time today. Good luck in your first-round matchup.
Yeah, thank you.
A tough matchup there for Whitman-Hanson. And speaking of tough matchups, we'll take a look at our final team in Division III, the 15 seed. Oliver Ames will be on the road against Hockomock foe North Attleboro, the 2 seed here in Division III, and the 2021 runners-up. North Attleboro can score, and they can score in bunches. Greg Bertone, running back, had a game-clinching 53-yard touchdown versus King Philip. Perhaps the most impressive win for any team this season as they knocked off KP 24-14. Their 2 losses on the season are against the 2 number 1 seeds in D1 and D2 in Franklin and Milford. It's the first year under head coach Mike Strahan, but he has picked up right where his predecessor left off for North Attleboro, and he has this team flying around. Sophomore quarterback Chase Frizzoli is also taking a nice step forward here in his 2nd year under center for Oliver Ames. They will lean on Chad Silva, their star running back, to try to slow this game down, limit possessions, and see if they can hang in against one of the state's best in the Rockets. That'll do it for Division III, and that will do it for this episode of the WATD Sports Desk Playoff Preview. We will be back later this week to preview Divisions 4, 6, 7, and 8. We'll take you through all the South Shore representatives in the field and give you a look at their first-round opponents. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the Sports Exchange on WATD. Find us on Twitter at SEOnWATD, and look out for more playoff content to come in the following weeks.